Hello and welcome to the version guide for Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is a turn-based strategy game by New World Computing, then a subsidiary of the 3DO company. It is the sequel to Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and it was originally released in 1999. It has become the most popular Heroes of Might and Magic game in the whole series, and for good reasons. The original release of the game is called Heroes of Might and Magic 3: The Restoration of Erathia, shortened to ROE. It was released in early 1999. The Restoration of Erathia builds upon the mechanics of Heroes of Might and Magic 2: The Price of Loyalty, with almost every new addition in the second game's expansion pack becoming a core part of the third game itself. It also brought new towns, new realistic graphics, more tactical combat, more spells, more hero skills and hero specialties, more adventure map objects, and a whole lot of campaigns, featuring highly developed storylines that have an impact on the game universe itself. Since the Restoration of Erathia built upon the previous game, it was already well polished on release. And the Restoration of Erathia is a native Windows 32 application, which means that it still runs more or less fine to this day on both Windows and Wine. That's the reason why this video is a version guide, rather than a setup guide. Also, fun fact, the Restoration of Erathia was in fact the very first game I have ever owned. While the Restoration of Erathia was already very good compared to its predecessors, it is not what people have in mind these days when talking about Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And that is due to the expansion packs. Not one, but two. The first expansion pack is called Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Armageddon's Blade, and it was released in late 1999. Now the development process of Armageddon's Blade was something else. In fact, that topic alone deserves its very own video, which I will make before I play through Armageddon's Blade. To keep it short and avoid spoilers, I'll just say that there was quite a fan backlash that resulted in New World Computing completely scrapping and replacing the main campaign and the new town added in the expansion pack. As you could expect, the result was a rush job. The new town, called Conflux, was mostly unoriginal, poorly balanced, thus banned from competitions, and even with visual glitches. However, despite all that, Armageddon's Blade was a major success, and is the go-to expansion pack. And when people think of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, they primarily think of Armageddon's Blade. It eclipsed the Price of Loyalty in the new features it brought. The aforementioned Conflux Town, new set of essential campaigns, new artifacts, new creatures, new adventure map objects, a random map generator, a campaign editor, and some gameplay enhancements we take for granted these days. Spacebar revisits the object you're on, artillery skill allows controlling arrow towers, it is possible to choose between upgraded and unupgraded creatures to purchase, each mine is a garrison, and there are border gates, vertical garrisons, and quest guards. The new creatures are probably the most iconic part of the expansion pack, which includes level 8 and level 10 dragons, as well as a bunch of neutral creatures that come back from Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Shortly after the release of Armageddon's Blade, 3DO released a compilation of the first two Heroes of Might and Magic games, and Heroes of Might and Magic 3: The Restoration of Erathia, and called it Heroes of Might and Magic Millennium Edition. This is the compilation in which there was a mix-up of music tracks for the second game. It included the so-called Sandlands theme, which was not that long ago confirmed by the composers as being a beta track that they themselves don't remember the purpose of. More importantly for Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the music CD mix-up included some Heroes of Might and Magic 3 tracks. While the music found in Restoration of Erathia and expansion packs is MP3 at 128 kilobytes per second, the Millennium Edition tracks are raw audio, and thus are effectively the gold masters. there were only 3 of the tracks included: Necropolis, Castletown, and Towertown. The Towertown track is in fact a beta, with the instrument balance being slightly different from the release version, and some instruments missing outright. At the turn of the century, the restoration of Erathia was ported over to MacOS by 3DO, and to Linux by Locky Software. Unfortunately, that was only the restoration of Erathia, not Armageddon's Blade. I will in fact be showing off the Linux version once we get to playing the restoration of Erathia, so stay tuned for that. It also runs just fine on modern Linux distributions, as long as the proper libraries are installed. In early 2000, the second expansion pack was released, called Heroes of Might and Magic 3: The Shadow of Death, shortened to SOD. This is where things get interesting. The Shadow of Death includes new campaigns as well. However, unlike the previous expansion packs, it is not a sequel, but rather a prequel. The campaigns take place before the events of the restoration of Erathia. The main feature of the Shadow of Death is new combinable artifacts, quite like the armor of Enduran in Heroes of Might and Magic 2: The Price of Loyalty, except there's way more of them, and they can be decombined as well. Since one of those artifacts requires 5 miscellaneous artifact slots to be equipped at the same time, 1 extra miscellaneous artifact slot was added in the expansion pack. There are also new Terran types and more types of teleporters, though the latter could have used more work. The Shadow of Death also brought some important gameplay tweaks. All towns now have damaging moats, angels got nerfed, whereas Fortress Town creatures got buffed. This is the expansion pack that made Dragonflights have the ability to cast weakness. It also introduced selectable difficulty in campaigns. One unusual but welcome aspect of the Shadow of Death is that, while it is officially an expansion pack, it also contains the entirety of the Restoration of Erathia, so you don't need to buy both. In addition, the Shadow of Death is a sort of meta expansion pack. It includes the features of Armageddon's Blade as well, except for 3: the random map generator, the Conflicts Town, and the Armageddon's Blade maps. Both expansion packs can be installed together to have these features unlocked in the Shadow of Death. The interesting thing is that it really is an unlock. If you just add empty files with the names of Armageddon's Blade files, the Conflicts Town and random map generator become available in the Shadow of Death just as well. Why New World Computing thought that feature locking was a worthwhile idea is beyond me. The Shadow of Death also does not include Armageddon's Blade intro movie. That's all the official expansion packs. But the list doesn't end here. In late 2000, New World Computing released Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Complete, which is effectively the Shadow of Death with Armageddon's Blade features enabled, and all maps from all expansion packs. Though, curiously, one Restoration of Erathia map is missing. And if I recall correctly, some versions of Complete also have an issue where the random map generator doesn't work out of the box, but that's just because of a missing folder to place the generated maps in, so it's an easy fix. Complete also does not include the intro movie of Armageddon's Blade, but the rest of the movies are of higher quality compared to the Shadow of Death alone. Complete also has new menu graphics. It was also eventually ported over to macOS, but not to Linux. In addition, there were plans to port the game to the Dreamcast console, but nothing ever materialized out of that effort. From the end of 2000 through 2001, seeing the popularity of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, New World Computing released a number of Heroes Chronicles games, most of which I have already played on my channel. They were intended to bring new players into the series, but the releases were so few and far between that it is doubtful if it ever did. More importantly, however, Heroes Chronicles plays an important role in the plot. The first ones that I have already played are prequels that set the whole premise of the continent of Antagarich, whereas the two I haven't played yet serve as a bridge between Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Armageddon's Blade and Heroes of Might and Magic 4. It is very fortunate that GOG.com managed to get a hold of Heroes Chronicles and make them available for all to play. In late 2002, 3DO released Heroes of Might and Magic Platinum Edition, which is a compilation of the first two games, as well as Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Complete. After 3DO went bankrupt and brought New World Computing down with them, the fans took to modding the game. The first major mod was In the Wake of Gods, shortened to WOG, developed from 2001 to 2006. It was technically quite impressive. Modders figured out how to create a sort of scripting language called Event-Related Model, or ERM for short, which allows making events that can change almost any value in the game and make them happen at the start of a game, on a given date, or as a map event. In the Wake of Gods also included new campaigns that effectively served as a showcase of what is possible with ERM. It also included commanders, which are somewhat similar to heroes on the battlefield, as seen in Heroes of Might and Magic 4. All creature stacks could have experience and level up, becoming more and more stronger over time, if they survive. It also included a whole lot of twigs that could be applied, such as the ability to choose auto-combat when a neutral stack tries to run, ability to decline learning a skill from witch huts, ability to rename towns and demolish buildings, as well as to convert town types, one-click button for buying all troops from a town, a more explicit way of setting up alliances, and so on. In the Wake of Gods also included new adventure map objects, such as the resource Mithril, sort of new creatures, and new upgrades. That said, not all was good in the Wake of Gods. The quality control in the mod was lax at best. The new creatures are horrific Frankensteins between several original game sprites, or are jarring palette swaps. The modders thought it would be fun to bring back some beta icons for resources and primary skills, which in reality look way inferior to the release versions. All new text boxes are in yellow, with a strange font and poor animations and sounds. And ERM, the holy grail of the effort, is in fact not human readable, and is much more akin to assembly rather than the scripting languages we know and love, such as Lua. All in all, In the Wake of Gods was technically impressive but extremely jarring. Its saving grace is the configuration screen, which allows disabling all of the Wake of Gods features except for ERM, allowing its use as a sort of tweak tool. A real ugly tweak tool. Nowadays, however, In the Wake of Gods as a standalone expansion pack is officially dead and should not be used anymore. Due to all the balance issues that Armageddon's Blade introduced, in 2007 a new mod, called Tournament Edition, or TE for short, was made. This mod is strictly for balancing reasons. Some of the tweaks it does is nerfing conflicts and banning all random week events. It was made specifically for hosting tournaments, but it was only possible to use it as an add-on to In the Wake of Gods, as the ERM scripting abilities were required for the desired changes. All this was getting rather unwieldy, and that, coupled with an increased demand for more extensive graphics modifications, led to the creation of Era. The main goal of Era was to consolidate all modding resources to create a unified mod platform. Instead of everything building on top of everything else, Era introduced a modular mod system with an ability to easily and cleanly enable or disable mods. In Era 2, released in 2012, In the Wake of Gods became a mere mod. All the other mods that used to depend on it still can, since Era keeps track of dependencies, but new mods can be created that do not require the In the Wake of Gods mod. It also helps that Era itself includes the RM engine, which is separated from the other assets of In the Wake of Gods. At the moment, Era represents the very forefront of modding Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So in other words, if you do want to play In the Wake of Gods, you should download Era 2. If you don't want to play In the Wake of Gods, you should still download Era 2, because Era itself can act as the new tweak tool. There's also a plethora of small standalone Era mods that are very worthwhile, from ones that add more battlefield graphics, to really beautiful interface mods, to new town mods, to new campaigns and map objects. There are over 60 Era mods made so far. However, the downside of Era is that the modifications it performs to the base game are so extensive that it does not run properly on Wine, last I checked. You need a full-blown virtual machine for it. While Era was still in development, another group of modders, disillusioned by the quality of In the Wake of Gods, began working on another mod that they called Horn of the Abyss. It was made as a sort of counterpoint to In the Wake of Gods. Instead of doing drastic engine changes, the modders opted for strict quality control. Only subtle fixes and tweaks were allowed, ones that were in the spirit of what neural computing would have done themselves back in 2001. Any new additions had to fit in with the existing style of the game. While initially Horn of the Abyss was built on top of In the Wake of Gods as well, down the line the modders managed to reverse engineer some of the Shadow of Death functionality to make Horn of the Abyss standalone, and not using ERM. Horn of the Abyss focuses on a new town called The Cove, which represents the Regnan Empire, and includes new campaigns based on it. It also includes new battlefield graphics, new adventure map objects, new artifacts, graphical fixes, and town balancing. Horn of the Abyss was released in 2014. Back in 2008, it was discovered that the original game shipped with an old Miles sound system library that could only play mono 22 kHz music, even though the input files are stereo 44.1 kHz. Modders have managed to adapt a newer version of Miles sound system that enables playing the music at its original quality. A nice side effect of this fix is that it brings more stability, as sound-related crashes had become more common on your Windows versions as well as Wine. Speaking of Wine, this fix is pretty much a necessity to run the game, because without it, the music may outright sound corrupt. Next, starting in 2010, some of the Tournament Edition and Horn of the Abyss developers came up with another mod, called the HD mod. As the title says, the HD mod allows launching the game in higher resolutions. You can choose arbitrary resolutions and zoom techniques. Though, obviously, the game assets are of the resolution that they are in and cannot be changed. So if you choose a large resolution, you have to go either with a scaler, or have all of the sprites in the game look rather small. In addition, it includes a bunch of handy tweaks. Hotkeys and convenience buttons for troop splitting and transferring, Market and Thieves Guild, explicit movement statistics, reduced number of pop-up boxes, a quick troop purchase button, explicit allied team selection, and the ability to view enemy creature speed visually, much like in Heroes of Might and Magic 4. It also includes a bunch of stability fixes, as well as the aforementioned sound fix. And it applies the Armageddon's Blade feature unlock for the Shadow of Death automatically. In addition, there is a mode called HD+, which adds some multiplayer-specific functionality. The HD mod is effectively a launcher. It does not modify game files themselves, and it works fine on Wine as well. It is designed to work with the Shadow of Death and Complete versions, as well as the Horn of the Abyss mod. It does have the ability to work with Era as well, but some mods may break compatibility. Unfortunately, it does not work with the base Armageddon's Blade or Restoration of Erathia. Not yet anyway. The mod is still in active maintenance. Now, the HD mod of 2010 must not be confused with Heroes of Might and Magic 3 HD edition of 2015. The HD edition is officially a new game released by Ubisoft. Ubisoft took the core game files and had a company called .emu hire artists to retouch the original game sprites to make them higher definition and add Steamworks multiplayer integration, and released it for Windows as well as Android and iOS. Now that sounds pretty great, right? Unfortunately, it's not. The biggest problem of the HD edition is that Ubisoft could only find the source code of the Restoration of Erathia. I suspect it might have been the source code Loki used to make the port to Linux, but we'll never know. In any case, the HD edition should actually be called Heroes of Might and Magic 3 The Restoration of Erathia HD edition. None of the really important features of Armageddon's Blade, nor the nice additions of the Shadow of Death are available, and none of the previous mods work with Restoration of Erathia HD edition. None of the expansion pack maps work with it either, because they rely on expansion pack content. And to add insult to injury, there is no Linux version of it, and it doesn't even work in Wine properly yet. So all in all, the HD edition is worthless, save for the high resolution assets. If you have a choice between the Restoration of Erathia HD edition and Complete with the HD mod, you should go for Complete and the HD mod every time. The HD edition may become more useful in the future if the modders figure out how to extract and make use of its assets in the HD mod, but that's all it's good for. And actually, the high resolution assets aren't even that good. The original game used 3D model renders exported as 2D sprites. Artists that retouched the sprites had only those for reference. The result is an undeniably washed out experience, with shading details lost, especially obvious in side-by-side comparisons. The real way to make an HD edition would have been to use the original 3D models and simply produce high-resolution sprites out of them. But the models must have been lost as well. Barring that, recreating the models may have resulted in better quality than messing with the low-resolution sprites anyway. One nice side effect of the HD edition, however, is that modders have come up with tools to strip expansion pack contents from scenarios and convert them into Restoration of Erathia scenarios, which are then compatible with the Restoration of Erathia native Linux port. This all leads us to the present, and one very important version that I am yet to talk about. VCMI. VCMI is not a mod, but rather a free and open source software re-implementation of the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 engine. It is basically the F-Heroes 2 of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, and likewise it is free and cross-platform. It even has Android builds. VCMI was started in 2008 and is under active development. Like Era, it has a modular system with the ability to enable and disable mods, many of which have been ported from Era. Both In the Wake of Gods and Horn of the Abyss have been ported to VCMI already, as well as Heroes Chronicles. VCMI also includes most of the HD mod features out of the box. All in all, VCMI is a fantastic project that will certainly become the go-to solution for Heroes of Might and Magic 3 in the future. However, so far it is missing 3 things. Any form of networking support, good AI, and some minor features such as Mithril and support for legacy scenarios that make use of ERM scripting. That's a very short list, and that's why VCMI is currently at version 0.99. Another notable work in progress at the moment, which also started back in 2008, is the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 The Succession Wars mod, that aims to forward port elements of Heroes of Might and Magic 2 to Heroes of Might and Magic 3, including the hand-drawn graphic style and some gameplay functionality, such as triple upgrades, while incorporating the advances of the new engine, such as the ability to wait and defend in battles, the new town types, and it even includes a sci-fi faction based on the first two generations of Might and Magic games. It is already far along in the development process, with the main remaining issues being the spell effects and some animations in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 not having equivalent in Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and needing a redo. That wraps up all of the versions of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 up to this day. To recap, Armageddon's Blade and Shadow of Death, combined into complete, is the definitive original experience. Installing the sound fix helps a lot with its stability, without doing any other changes. Then, the HD mod is an excellent tweak to run the game in higher resolutions and convenience options, but otherwise vanilla. From bigger mods, Horn of the Abyss is a great true to the original standalone mod expansion pack. For other mods, and there's a lot of them to choose from, including In the Wake of Gods, you will want to use Era 2. Or, if you don't need network play and you're fine with a dumb AI and some bugs, you can already use VCMI for the next generation of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 experience. Oh, and ignore Ubisoft's HD edition, it's useless right now. Let me finish this video by pointing out that this is all a prelude to my next Let's Play project. I go by in-universe order, so next up is going to be a playthrough of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 The Shadow of Death. I will be playing the standalone version of it with the HD mod on Linux through Wine. Unlike previous Heroes of Might and Magic games, I have already played Heroes of Might and Magic 3 The Shadow of Death, but only the first few campaigns, and I hardly remember anything from it, so it's going to be an entertaining run. I'll end with a disclaimer that I'm not that involved with modding the game myself, so I may have got some dates or other small things wrong, in which case feel free to leave a comment, and I will add the updated information to the description of the video. I hope you found this version guide useful, and I will see you all in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, The Shadow of Death. Later.